Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented by Remington Tavern, and we are here broadcasting live from the Cincy Light Studios. But Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at RemyTavCincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And you can also get Cincy Light, at least last time I was there, on tap. So you can have yourself a nice, refreshing Cincy Light there at Remington Tavern. But George, we are just minutes, broadcasting minutes shortly after the Cincinnati Bearcats, your number 18 team in the nation, has defeated the Northern Kentucky Norse 76-60. The Norse have dubbed it the River Rivalry or something of that nature. I don't really. They're doing their damnedest to make this.
Yeah, I heard him mention it during the broadcast, and I forget what it was. The River something. You're right.
But 4 players score in double digits. This game, closer than the final score, indicates you certainly were. I don't know that I'll say on the edge of your seat, but you were probably a little concerned until about midway through the second half.
Maybe more than a little concerned because of what happened 2 years ago over there. Everyone remembers that great 11-point second half, and UC falls to the Norse over there. It got to that point where you're thinking about that tonight in the second half, and then UC turned it on. I was a little surprised watching in the first half, and just UC was playing well defensively. It just didn't seem to bother NKU as much as I thought it would. And at the same time, UC's offense seemed to be having a little bit of a conundrum, trying to figure out how in the world to figure out this defense that NKU plays, and trying to figure that thing out a little bit. And you give it to Darren Horn and that NKU staff. They circle this game. I'm not saying UC didn't take it serious and go off, but this is a game NKU had circled. This is a game they game planned for, and this is a game they threw everything they had at. And it worked for quite a while in the game, but eventually UC had enough talent to take over, and NKU shots didn't start falling as much as they were earlier in the game. And quite honestly, down the stretch when UC turned it on, Seamoss with his shooting and unloading that one from almost half court, his shooting and that athleticism and really finally starting to grab some rebounds and doing some things at the other end that they should have been doing, they were able to pull away.
Yeah, at halftime, Cincinnati was losing in the rebound department. It was 11-16. They end up losing 27-36. But the shooting improved tremendously. They were 4 of 13 from 3 at the half. They finished 11 of 22. That improves from 30% to 50%. That's largely on the back of Seamoss Lukosius, who's shooting out of his mind, 6 of 9. It was an off night for him, as he was only at 67%. Dropped him under 70% for the season.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
And you were also right around 41% at half from the field, and you finished 31 of 58 to finish at 53% from the field. But yeah, they did certainly turn it on there in the second half. And I don't know, there were plenty of guys that impressed me, but I generally get to do that show here whenever Chad gets home and we finish this show. I'll probably end up doing that show tonight as one of the 3 shows that I'll be doing tonight, as we'll also have to do the nightcap tonight. But who impressed you tonight, George?
Well, it was great to see Day Thomas back on the court.
Sure, absolutely.
And he gets in the game and immediately makes a difference, deflects a ball, leads to a steal. Then he made a good offensive play. Then he kind of started doing some things that we don't want him to do when it matters the most. And he, and I just think it was typical first game out of the box. I'm back in. Let's do as much as I possibly can. It just seemed like one of those kind of deals where he got going a little bit ahead of himself for a while, but all in all, he did well. And it was just, to me, just great to see him back on the court and looking good. When I saw him in there and saw how good he looked, I'm like, Lord, I know they held him out well past what they really had to, and I hope that is the case because healthy kid with his quickness, I don't care. There's going to be times he's going to help bail you out.
Yeah, and they eased him in. Only 14 minutes tonight for Day, as Jizzle James had the other 26 at the point. And between the two of them, they did end up with 10 assists, which I'm not going to be terribly upset if they end up with 10 assists on an average game. And it didn't feel like that. I felt like the ball moved well, essentially, throughout most of the game. But there were just some gaffes, whether they were mental errors or just some strange situations where you're just throwing it out of bounds a couple
times. There were some bad passes.
Yeah.
There were some guys like going in the lane and it's like whipping it to the corner and nobody's there. And I remember Day doing one of those later in the game. So yeah, there was some weirdness, but again, and the guys, doing the game, watch all the NKU games, and they said NKU threw a lot of different stuff out there that they had not seen before.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Mostly offensively, believe it or not, that they were doing some things and more challenging UC inside instead of shooting a lot of threes like they usually do.
Yeah. Speaking of threes, though, we mentioned it earlier. Simas Lukosius shooting out of his mind. He was 6 of 9 tonight from the floor. They were all threes. He had 18 points to lead the Bearcats. It's ridiculous how he has started this season, just shooting unconsciously.
Aaron, when he shot that one real long one, and it might have been his last three of the night, and he's standing out there, and there's defenders going past him, and he's just dribbling. I'm like, no. I'm like, because he just hit one before that, right?
Yeah.
He just hit one. And I'm like, you don't need to chuck another one from way out there. You really don't. And he chucked it and he made it. I mean, you could tell. That's exactly what he's just letting these defenders kind of run by him. He's way out there, 36 feet plus from the basket. And then he just turns and torques it and makes it. And what did he end up? You say 6 of 9, something like that.
Yeah, he was 6 of 9 on the night.
Yeah, that's absurd. Absolutely absurd. And it was also good to see him when they did start to take control of the game and they got to a point. Their transition offense was really good. They had a lot of good looks, finding cutters to the rim for dunks. And it was just play after play after play down the stretch that they did that. And for a team that played their butt off, as long as NKU did, those are just backbreakers. Just backbreakers when you're watching the opponent go up for alley-oop trip after trip. And UC was really, really good in that stretch when they just completely blew it open.
Yeah, Dylan Mitchell had 2 of those alley-oops. The one he cut from the corner of the court, and just no one was anywhere near him when he caught the lob.
Yeah, and that's what the announcers were saying too. Like, keep in mind these are Big 12 athletes, and NKU does not go up against Big 12 athletes very often. And yes, and it made a huge difference, the athleticism. So, I give Coach West and the gang a couple thumbs up. Sluggish start, didn't look great. Nobody lost their mind. Got back to doing what they do best, and If all else fails, just throw the ball to Lukosius and let him throw it in.
Do want to mention Dylan Mitchell again, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. The dude's unreal.
Well, yeah, and you look. I was looking earlier in the game, and it's like he really hadn't done anything yet. He had a decent line at that point, and it's like he's got a hell of a lot more than I thought. And getting back to Lukosius, this crossed my mind right when you started going down that avenue. But how long can this kid keep this up, and what does he do? I mean, how many 3-pointers is he going to finish with? I looked it up last night, how many he had. I think he was right around 20. So we're at 26 now. How many games in?
4.
I mean, you're looking at triple digits. I don't think he'll challenge Lizelle Durden's record, but this has been ridiculous.
I don't put anything past anybody to pass, especially a 3-point record. On the way that basketball is played nowadays versus how it was played in the late 90s.
Yeah, it's just when you start thinking of that many threes, in a third, we'll say roughly 30-game season or whatever. I mean, it's insane. And so
you got a question here in the chat, George,
to see how long he's not going to shoot 70% or 66 or whatever from 3 all year, but my God, if he's doing that 40% plus clip, that's a big plus for this team.
Well, right now he's something like 70, 71%, something silly. I don't know that ESPN's updated the seasonal stats yet.
I'll tell you what, Daniel Wade does ask a good question.
Yeah, why did you see look lost the first they hit the road and see zone defense?
It seems like every time. I know where he's coming from. I don't know why, but it does look that way. Anytime they get on the road and they see this matchup zone, I mean, remember that crap Temple used to do? And it was just a train wreck. I mean, they couldn't run anything right. Back in the days when Pitt did that in the Big East too. I don't know why. I don't know, but it's an age-old UC question. It's it's like,
maybe
why do the Reds always get critical injuries and to the worst people that they can afford it? I don't know. It's a Cincinnati thing though. There's no doubt about that.
Why do the Bearcats always shoot a very poor free throw percentage? I don't know. It's just
there you go.
It's just a thing.
There is another one. And why is it when they really, really suck, although I can't say this year, but when they really, really suck record-wise in football, they always have a good punter and or a good place kicker. But when it's the other way around, when they have a good record, it's like they can't frickin' find a kicker on campus no matter what.
Well, their next opponent will be Georgia Tech, also on the road. Georgia Tech now stands at 2-2 with their wins over West Georgia and Texas Southern, losses to North Florida and Georgia this past Friday.
So they got a good little stretch coming up now. I mean, they had the road game tonight, which is cool. I know people don't like playing some of these schools on the road because you feel like all you can do is something goes wrong, but I also think it just helps road test you a little bit. It's in KU, but still, it's leaving your arena. It's playing somewhere. I think it's good for them to do that. And, they're going to get that with Georgia Tech. They're going to get that with Villanova. So, yeah, this next month's going to be a lot of fun. Where are we? The 19th? Less than a month because, the shootout's what? 12th? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
The shootout is on the 14th.
14th. Yep. So it's going to be a good month coming.
Well, we'll see. Tip-off is at 2:00 on Saturday against Georgia Tech. That game, of course, will be on the ACC Extra channel if you have that channel, or you can find them on the good old ESPN Plus. Did you see that basketball is going to be moving a ton of games over to Turner next season? Did you see any of that yesterday?
I did not see that.
Okay, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff moving hands, and it's all trying to catch
Is
up
that like
to
all major conferences or like some Fox or ESPN contracts, or do you know?
I don't know enough to speak on it. I'll be completely honest.
Mhm.
I think it's largely just Big 12 stuff,
Yeah.
which they're just trying to catch up with the Big 10 and SEC any way they can. So
Right.
we'll see how that shakes out. Just means that having ESPN Plus will not be enough to catch all of the games. You're going to have to make sure you have that cable subscription one way or the other.
Man, God, it's that way with everything anymore.
Yep. So there was another Bearcat game, though, that we can talk about that happened on Saturday. So I'm curious to get your thoughts as the Cincinnati Bearcats do lose on the road in Ames to Iowa State Cyclones. Your final score, 34-17. Take it away, George. What did you think of that one?
Oh my God. Did I expect them to win? Not necessarily, no. But I was disappointed in a lot of things I saw Saturday night. Very disappointed. And it was a very winnable game late, and they fell apart like crazy. First of all, something's got to happen with these special teams. Something's got to happen. It's killing them. Killing them. Field position, bad things happening at the worst possible time. It's killing them. I mean, honest to God, I think if you have a competent special teams performance and mainly out of punt coverage, it would have been a one-score game at the end of the game. They were that bad that they put them in so many bad positions that something absolutely has to be done. I mean, I think they punted 6 times. They punted, I want to say 6 times, 1 out of 28-yard return. So it was like a net 24 or something. That kills you. There was another, a 48. Oh, no return on that one. But an 18-yard punt, a 36-yard punt. You can't have that. It can't keep, but you cannot get off the field on 3rd down and then go out there and puke on a play as simple as a punt. You just can't.
Real quick. Thanks for the donation, Daniel Wade. We do appreciate it. He says, thanks for answering my question. Go UC.
No, he didn't really answer it. There is. I just don't have an answer for it. But that football game really honked me off. And then when you get down to, it was, a 3-point game with 4 minutes ago, something like that? Or I know it was a 1-score game. Yeah, UC was down 3 with 4:09 to go when that crazy Beck play happened with the high snap. And, of course, it comes down. And bad luck for UC in that department. However, terrible defense by UC for there to be that big of a freaking gap in the middle of the field for this guy to tap the ball up in the air, still catch it, come down, and it looked like the parting of the Red Sea in front of him. And it's like, what happened? Yeah, we can say fluky play, but if that would have been a direct snap to the guy without, I contend he would have walked into the end zone anyway.
and it sucks that you have to say that about any of that play because the defense largely did play well that entire game, right? I mean,
yes,
up until and they were probably gassed having been out on the field because you only
that was a part of it, and the Godfather was gone by that point because he had that injury, and Then the last touchdown was on that 4th and 2, and the kid pops it, and again there was another gap there I could have run through. I was disappointed in that, because that's like the first time this season I felt like they just kind of half-assed a play. I just felt like they half-assed a play, and the game was over. I get it, but I don't like it. But yes, the defense played so well in the first half. Played well enough that they had him in it to win it at the end. That play did tee me off. But what tees me off even more is when you look at how the offense did not perform worth an iota. Running game, great. Passing game, I want to say 3 wide receivers caught balls maybe. And then Joe Royer and the rest were running backs. It was ridiculous.
Two wide receivers.
Two receivers and Royer, right?
Tony Johnson and Xavier Henderson. You had 2 tight ends that were targeted. Well, I guess Sherman did have a catch. He had no yards. And Royer had the 2 catches for 8. And then Pryor and Kiner were the only other ones that had catches. And your 2 biggest playmakers, Xavier Henderson and Joe Royer, had 3 catches total, 20 yards total, and 7 targets total. You had 55. You had 55 pass yards in the first quarter. You had 11 pass yards the rest of the game. You finished with 66 pass yards.
We saw it. I mean, Sorsby had a horrible game throwing the ball. He just did. He had a terrible game throwing the ball. I think as that went along, some of it affected a bit of his decision making. Even though I don't think that was the worst part of his game, it was just he couldn't throw the ball to anyone, whether they were open or not, and sometimes they were. And we all know the missed play, the missed play to Pryor that could have popped for an 80-yard it would have been an 80-yard touchdown. That is an absolute difference-making play in a game when you make that play. So he had a horrible night throwing the football. Then there was the other one throwing to the guy. The guy was wide open, and he short hops him. And it's just, you can't have that. And they were having so much trouble converting on 3rd down because of that. And now this gets me to the next thing that teased me off about the offense. And it was all the penalties and the pre-snap mistakes. And, henceforth, that's why you can't convert on 3rd down, because you're 3rd and 15, you're 3rd and 9, you're 3rd and 12, you're 3rd and 9, you're 3rd and 15 again, you're 3rd and 6. I mean, come on. Those are the situations they were facing in that game. And already your quarterback's struggling to throw the ball, and now you're putting him in a situation where he has to throw the ball. And it was a bad night for the passing game, and it cost them.
Well, it's probably why you finish 3 of 11 on 3rd downs for the night.
I mean, I would say the passing offense and special teams, that was the 2 huge culprits.
Have you ever seen
this game?
Have you ever seen a team go from where they're getting, 250, 300 yards passing early in the season to this bad? They just outright refuse to pass the ball more than 15 yards. Just refuse.
No, and what's more baffling to me is they're still running the ball well. How in the hell are you running the ball well and you're having trouble getting guys open?
39 attempts and you averaged 7.4.
Now, all of that crap I said, I will say this: to be down 3 on the road at Iowa State with 4:09 left tells me that this is a better football team than it was a year ago when they played Iowa State and got manhandled from start to finish. So I guess I'm not on the Fire Satterfield bandwagon like a lot of people are.
No, I understand.
I'm on the bandwagon that I am seeing progress. It is not coming as fast as I want, and I'm somewhat patient. I want to see some results a little quicker. But when I take a step back after a couple of days and look at it, it's like there is a little bit of progress going on here. But is it enough that in 2 more years they're going to be a legit player for this thing? I can't say that.
Let me give you some crazy stats, and I will not take credit for this. I am getting this information from one of the guys who listens to our podcast. He had tweeted this out. His name is Doug Smith. And this comes from his personal Twitter account. But the Bearcats have given the final score of the first half to Towson, field goal, 19 seconds left in the half. Pitt, field goal, as the clock expired. Texas Tech, touchdown, 1:39 left in the half. UCF, field goal, 1:52 left in the half. Colorado, touchdown, 3 seconds left in the half. West Virginia, touchdown, 3:37 left in the half. And Iowa State, field goal, 8 seconds left in the half. So those are what they have given up as the final score of the first half. Let's double down on that, George. And here's the teams that the Bearcats have given up the first score of the second half to. Towson, field goal. Texas Tech, touchdown. UCF, touchdown. Arizona State, touchdown. Colorado, touchdown. West Virginia, touchdown.
So if we could just get rid of the last 5 minutes of the first half and the first couple drives of the second half, they'd be a pretty good football team.
Bananas.
I don't know. That's an amazing stat. I don't know. I do know how you explain. I think that you can explain both ends of that, actually. I mean, there's been some mismanagement deluxe at the end of halves that have allowed teams to have enough time to do some things with the football when they get it. And perhaps coaches say all the time, yeah, halftime adjustments are overrated, and they're this and they're that. But it sure seems to be something that's getting UC a little bit this year.
It's wild. So I don't know what to make of any of it. It's the defense has certainly improved. I do want to say that.
Yes.
But it's still maddening. It's almost like we are allergic as a team to playing all 3 phases. We are not allowed to play because special teams was good early on. They were maybe the only consistent ones throughout 5, 6, 7 weeks, and now it's as if that's fallen off a cliff. The offense rushing is fantastic. The passing offense fell off a cliff roughly 4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And then also, and every team has these, but my God, and I bet you see again on Saturday night, how many potential big plays have been there for this team. Interceptions, whether it be in the end zone to keep the other team from scoring, whether it be 22 had one the other night, could have changed the whole complexion of that game. If he grabs that ball,
Thompson, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, if he makes that interception, we got a whole different ball game going on, and he couldn't hang on.
Same thing with Brendan Sorsby. If he can float that pass to Evan Pryor,
right,
as there's no one around him, anywhere near him, and he just sailed it. He overthrew him by about 10 yards.
I mean, I guarantee you could hear a groan throughout the whole city, people watching that game and that play being missed. And yeah, there were, well, there's 2 right there, and there were probably a couple more that could have made a complete difference in that outcome if the Bearcats are able to make the play. But they're getting there one of these days. One of these years, but are they going to be able to get bowl eligible? I'm not confident at all in it.
Well, I guess the good news is you've got a Kansas State team that's also on a skid right now.
Hard to believe what's happened to them the last 2 weeks.
Agreed. But I I've not been a believer of Avery Johnson this whole season, and Chad and I have discussed that many times on the different nightcaps throughout the season. I just there is something about Avery Johnson that I do not believe in. I have not believed in this Kansas State team, and it's started to come to fruition a little bit. And I also hate Sonny Dykes, so I would love to win these last 2 games. Would absolutely love to win these last 2 games,
without a doubt. Without a doubt. Then then you got a much better perspective on it. If you get to 7 wins, that feels a hell of a lot better than what it could be.
Yeah, you don't want to.
First of all, who was going to say 7 or more anyway to begin the season?
Well, and truthfully, if you get 7, you have a shot at 8 if you can win a bowl game.
Right.
But
let's hope they get to that point, and hopefully they take care of business this week. Is there a bye this week? No, the Bengals.
No, the Bengals have the bye. They play Kansas State at 8:00 on the road because God forbid they have a night game actually at home. They're all on the road,
and that's crazy too.
Yeah. So, outside of that, though, I don't know that there's much else to talk on in regards to the Bearcats.
I listened to the news conferences today, but did you catch an update on Corleone? Is he going to be good to play this week?
I have not listened to anything yet.
I'm sure they asked him. I just missed that. I must have missed that, but
I can see if I can find anything on
that because much like the Bengals' defensive line was late in that game, that's how UC's defensive line was late in that game at Iowa State. Man, they got a little gassed.
Scott Satterfield said today that Dante Corleone is getting better, and everyone who got dinged up are trending in the right direction and should be available Saturday. It looked like he just took a knee to that thigh, on the outside of that thigh, and I'm sure to take him out, that thing's got to be probably all sorts of different colors.
Right.
Purple, yellow, brown, whatever color bruise you can come up with, blue.
Right. I don't know the whole thing. I was kind of worried. I didn't know if that other issue that he'd had, with the blood clots and stuff, if that makes him more susceptible to something along those lines. I don't know, but it sounds like he's trending in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see him out there this weekend out there at Kansas State.
Yeah, that field was atrocious, and I don't understand.
That too. I wanted to talk about that. I mean, come on. And Satterfield brought that up last Tuesday, right?
Thanks for the reminder, Randy.
Yeah, that stuff was so bad. I tweeted to their football. I think I tweeted to their football office, like, do you really have to dress this field with cow manure before the field? So it's like, I mean, why is it so damn slick? And it's not like it's all of a sudden problem, right? They've had this issue, I think, for a while. Or it's
ongoing? Correct. No, it's been ongoing, and it definitely affected not just Cincinnati, because Iowa State
got the Big 12 doesn't say get it right. You're in frickin' Iowa and you can't grow grass.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that's an ideal climate to grow grass. If you're in Iowa, just replace it with turf. Who cares?
Well, they can grow corn.
Corn's seasonal. You don't grow corn through the winter.
They can grow wheat. They can grow. You're telling me they can't grow a decent? They can. I mean, Pittsburgh can have a game with Pitt on Saturday, and then the Steelers and the Ravens on Sunday. And
don't compare that field, because that field's known for being trash. Also,
that field is so trash. I'll tell you. The best was when they had the downpour. They had the college game, and they had the downpour, and it rained so damn much they couldn't pull up the old turf, so they just put the new over for the Sunday night football game. Well, of course, leave it to us. We're watching the pregame show on Sunday night, and they're showing guys kick the ball and come down, and it just sticks in the mud. Mm-hmm. And it's and the people are like, you can't run on this thing. So that under dropped down to 30 like that, and everyone went under. And I think that game ended 12-8 or something. That was
Gross.
the best
What a
under
terrible
bet in the
game.
history of bets I've had.
Speaking of terrible games, there's another football game we get to talk about here. For those of you who don't normally watch this show, this is where we discuss all of your last week of Cincinnati sports. So the Cincinnati Bengals drop one 34-27 to the LA Chargers on the road against the best defense in the league. Joe Burrow is putting up the most ridiculous stats maybe ever for a team that continues to lose. It's maddening. It's frustrating. I can only imagine what it's like to be him. You're starting to hear it come out in his press conferences, and that's because it's hard to bite his tongue anymore. You're hearing it come out of Jamar Chase and his interviews. Zach Taylor just sounds like a gee golly, we're gonna get this thing right next week. We're just staying the course. I think the graphic said that there's still a 10% chance for them to make the playoffs with the loss. But I don't believe this team's doing anything. You've won one home game. You've only won 4 games, and you telling me that this team's still going to make the playoffs? Get out of here.
Yeah, I don't believe it either. No, they're not. They're not. They're just not. And I did think they were going to win Sunday night because I felt like they knew they had to win Sunday night. T. Higgins was back in the lineup and doing a lot of good things. And
nine catches, 100.
They couldn't get anything going early, and then when they did, but let's start with this. This is stupid. They lost by 7, but still, we talk about UC special teams. What in the hell's going on with Evan McPherson?
He got paid and forgot how to kick.
I mean, it's killing him.
I don't know if it's, and I've read anywhere that I can read stuff on it, but that I've seen anybody talking about it, but I don't know. You have a new holder, but it doesn't sound like he's doing anything different. It sounds like the snap, and the kicks have all been relatively similar from the beginning of the season to where we are now. I don't think it's that. It can't be that, right?
It shouldn't be at this point in the season. I get it early on when you're working in the new parts, but my God. And it's now like the Bengals get in what is typical field goal range for NFL teams anymore, and they're coming away empty, and these other teams are putting points on the board. Maybe not necessarily last night with the Chargers, but it's burned them. It has burned them. It has cost them games this year, and it cost them last night. You take the lead, and they had a couple chances to do that, and take the lead in that game, and it's just a different ball game, and couldn't make it.
You almost feel bad for the defense because they did everything they could in that second half, but it's because of how poorly they played in the first half that you were even in this position to begin with.
Oh, they were terrible in the first half. I mean, terrible. And then you got Jermaine Pratt over there yelling at everyone, and he's all fired up. And then the next series they go out there, and he gets his ass pancaked by a running back. I mean, it's like there's no – I mean, I don't know. They just are not good enough. Then you're playing that whole what happened to Cam Taylor-Britt game. Like, what in the world's going on there? I'm sure he's salvageable, but he's just not playing at the level he did last year.
I was loud wrong about DJ Taylor going into this season. He's become
God, he played really well. And Newton played well last night. Josh Newton played very, very well. Now Turner's gone, though.
I know. You hate to see him get – as soon as he lands on that shoulder, I'm like, I've broken my collarbone. That's a broken collarbone.
I know. I was hoping it wasn't. I was hoping it's like this poor kid's been playing so well, and he's got such incredible speed. I mean, it's insane, his speed. hopefully he can come back, but that's not really going to help him this year. He's going to be out a little bit. Now they're picking up guys off practice squads and off the street to fill these spots, and so that's not looking promising. And it just the offense ended up with like 450 total yards, which ought to be enough to win a game. But what was it? Probably 300 plus were in the second half. But they allowed 270 yards in the first half to the Chargers. The defense did. It's like, Herbert was doing whatever the heck he wanted. It was really strange for the defense. That was, I know on the radio they use that old tale of two halves thing way too much, and they do. But boy, for the defense, it really, really was. But, they sure couldn't make the one stop at the end of the game when they needed to.
I just can't imagine what's going through Joe Burrow's head. I know it's a bye week, obviously, so you got time to try and if you're going to right the ship, I guess now is the best time to try and do so. I know it was reported that most players were not at the stadium today because, again, bye week, so most players are taking time to go clear their heads, all of that. Joe Burrow's car was seen at the stadium, so most are assuming he was there working, trying to figure out.
Yeah, probably looking at that game film and wondering what in the heck went wrong because, oh, man, when they got it going, they had it going, but it was just – I hate to say too late because it really wasn't. You make those field goals, get another stop out of that defense. But, yeah, to think this sounds crazy because I'm obviously somewhat optimistic myself, but Zach Taylor's optimism and the way he says that with a straight face and I'm not just saying that, I believe it. I totally believe in these guys that they're going to win these games and we're going to be in the playoffs. I'm not that optimistic. I mean, I could be the head coach of the Bengals and love every one of those guys, but when I'm driving out of that parking lot after a day of work and going home and knowing what I'm up against and where I'm at and what the division is and what the standings are, it's like, Jesus, yeah, we ain't going to the playoffs this year, but let's just try to finish as well as we can. But no, he'll stand there and the hell of it is, Aaron, I believe he believes it.
I mean,
That's
you
how
have
optimistic this guy is. It's crazy.
You have a quarterback putting up MVP numbers. He leads passing yardage by 150 yards to the next closest person. I don't understand it. I can't. It's crazy. It's crazy. He's just every week he's putting up 300 plus and 3 touchdowns plus, and it doesn't matter because this team can't get out of its own way.
And then now I'm going to go back to something, and this is really stupid. But okay, tell me now, because I've been saying this for years, and now you see, I'm not saying he's a superstar, but the way Joe Mixon is being used in Houston is working.
Yeah,
it's working.
We don't know how to run the ball. We don't know how to run the ball.
Why? But they never threw to him out of the backfield other than once in a blue moon, too. And Houston uses that play. They use him the way he should be used. And he's picking up all kinds of yardage from scrimmage. And it just seems to me that he was misused by the Bengals badly.
Yes.
I mean, it really does. I mean, I see what Houston does with him, and it's like, well, that's what the hell I would have been doing with it. I mean, to me, this was like he's a bigger, James Brooks is probably the toughest player pound for pound of anyone, but he's that kind of back where he's really valuable out of the backfield. He might be able to bust a run. James was probably better at busting longer runs than him, but he was useful in every phase of the game. even picking up blitzes, whatever he was. And it just seemed like they always kind of half-assed it with Joe, never used him out of the backfield, never – you don't even have to have screens. Just dump the damn ball to him when he's the last out.
Well, this goes back to my point, though, George, that Zach Taylor is not an offensive coordinator on any other football team in the NFL. And Zach Taylor is not a head coach on any other football team in the NFL if he's fired tomorrow.
You know, these conversations I've had over the weekend just with old guys just spitballing around and stuff, though. But what would you do? Like, I mean, Mike Brown's way too loyal to these guys, and I love Zach, and I don't want Zach to be fired or anything. But would you take a chance on Bill Belichick having a quarterback like Joe Burrow and just
here's what should happen, George? Here's what should happen. Mike Vrabel should go into the Cleveland Browns office today and demand that he is no longer working for the Cleveland Browns. He should get in his car. He should drive down I-71. He should walk he should walk into Zach Taylor's office, pick him up, throw him in the river, and take his job.
And what if Mike Brown says no? Would you then tell Vrabel to drive up to Clifton and throw someone else out of their office?
Well, but I don't know that Mike Brown can tell him no if Mike Vrabel has just thrown Zach Taylor into the river.
Yeah, they have got to look at this operation. They've got to look at this coaching staff. They've got to look at. I mean, you tell me. I will name. I can name 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 head coaches that I would probably think might get more out of this team than what I'm seeing, right? Is that kind of how you feel?
There's 31 coaches in the NFL that would get more out of this team.
I didn't want to be mean, but there could be. But you go down and see what some of these guys get out of their players. And for God's sakes, you know, Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh's been doing it forever. And he's doing it again this year with a team that coming into the season, we probably all kind of have laughed at if someone would have said they're a threat to win the division.
Correct.
And look at what's going on. I know, it's crazy.
It's insane. I didn't know if we'd have time to get to this topic. I'm going to kick it over here anyway because I don't know that we have any. I'm going to go crazy if I talk any more Bengals stuff because I
can tell.
This season.
It is. It's rough.
The Cincinnati Reds put the qualifying offer on Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez accepts the qualifying offer. I'm a little surprised, but I'm okay with it. He was arguably their best pitcher over the course of the entire season. I probably Hunter Green still, but Nick Martinez actually made it through the entire season. So best ability is always availability. That said, you also are starting to hear some rumblings about India's name being kicked around. This week, it was with the Kansas City Royals. That deal falls apart because Nick Martinez ends up signing the qualifying offer. So the pitcher that was tied to these grumblings as well for the Kansas City Royals, you really can't, maybe don't have room for, I guess, right. if you make that trade. Jonathan India came through last year. People wrote him off before last season, and he came through last year. Say what you want about Jonathan India. I don't know that you should move him.
Well, yeah, depending on how faithful they are in the return of these guys who have been injured and all of that, and this is going to have Tito's fingerprints all over it, is what it's going to be. And he's going to keep the guys. Yeah. And he's going to keep the guys. And if he thinks Jonathan India is a guy that he wants to be in a foxhole with and does have enough talent to help him, because, you know, when he won with some of those teams he won with, he didn't have a whole bunch of superstars and stuff. What he had was just a bunch of dirty, grimy, long-haired, scruffy baseball players that love playing baseball, and that's probably a big part of the reason they pick up that big chunk on Martinez. He's got that option, and they thought he might go elsewhere because he's probably looking at least a 2 or 3 year deal somewhere else worth more. But they end up making him that qualifying offer, and that's why, because I'm sure, he's looked at as a guy by the new manager as someone that he wants as part of that clubhouse, part of that team, and as someone that he can bank on with Martinez every third day going out there and taking the mound, because he did a lot of long relief, spot start, do this, never moaned once, and really, really, really enjoyed when he got in that rotation and was doing very well at it. So it's going to be an interesting offseason with the Reds to see what they can do, because this TV thing's really weird. And what they want to do, and Tito's going to find the players. He's going to find some guys, and I'm going to trust his judgment.
Yeah, winter meetings are roughly about a month away. So I'm fascinated to see what happens at the winter meetings, because that'll be really the first time that I imagine that Tito's really going to have an opportunity to get into those conversations and start having the freedom to spread his wings a little bit and put some work in. So that'll be fascinating to see what the roster looks like after the winter meetings. And then the catchers and pitchers report 2 months after that. So
yeah, it's nice having a guy that's kind of been there, done that, seen how to win, maybe a couple different ways on how to win, because while Boston didn't necessarily outspend the Yankees, they had a pretty big payroll and kind of got what they needed and all that. Then you go to Cleveland and you kind of got to play that smaller market thing. And when you take your shots, you got to hit the target, and he did. So it's interesting. He's got all that to draw on, and that's what Cincinnati fans have to hang their hope on, because they've got a lot of good young talent that hopefully, in what could be a short window, they make something happen.
Were you surprised?
Things getting weird.
Were you surprised that the Reds retained Freddie Benavidez, Derek Johnson, Colin Cowgill, J.R. House?
I really, yeah, probably if you would have asked me like right away. But after it happened, and it's like, so, the third base coach, the first base coach, younger guys that these guys really love. They love these guys, and they're hard-driven baseball dudes and all that. Tito's got a background with Benavidez. They go back a while. They know each other. It makes sense, and he's got him and Freddie, kind of the old school and the older guys, even though, Tito's kind of one of the guys, but still. But you've got these other young, relatable dudes.
I'm happy DJ's back.
And then you've got that guy that nobody's ever pitched about as far as not knowing what he's doing. And I'm sure that was with the blessing with Tito, too. He's like, yeah, I want this guy.
Weird story about Bell going into the Toronto Blue Jays front office this week, as he is no longer going to be a manager or coaching of any sort. He'll be in an office role with the Toronto Blue Jays. Little strange there, but good luck, Bell.
Yeah, he loves his baseball. Hopefully he does well up there and finds a nice niche. And who knows? You never know, Aaron. He may be back here as general manager someday.
You can't get ejected from the office. It's a little harder to get ejected from the office.
No, it'd be fun to sit in on some of those board meetings if he gets mad, though.
You and I talked before the show. Worth mentioning, the FC Cincinnati is bringing in the largest transfer as far as costs go. The highest cost transfer ever in the history of MLS. We'll look into that as they start to construct this roster for next season. But that's all we really know about that.
Some money, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, that is. Especially when you look at the other two and some of the other two teams in the city and some of the woes that they've had these last couple of seasons. Other than that, though, what do you got in high school?
It's down to the regional finals, and it's really odd. Like Cincinnati, you got Moeller and St. X playing in Division One, which is huge. Moeller's 12-1, X 10-3. It'll be a battle. Division Two, Anderson, LaSalle. Anderson's still undefeated. Division 4, Taft plays Alter. In Kentucky, who's playing in Kentucky? Ryle hosting Central Hardin in Class 6A. Pulaski County comes to Highlands. Southwestern comes to Cooper. Covcath, Newport, Newcath, Beechwood. They're all still alive in the state tournament. And in Indiana, we are down to the state semifinals. And the local school left is Batesville in Class 3A. So East Central falling last week in 4A, a defending state champ, but another good season nonetheless. So, yeah, it's getting down to state championship time in high school football very soon.
Well, there you go. And, high school hoops is right around the corner. So,
yeah, it is 11-19. Boy, I've lost a couple of weeks because of this surgery.
You have, but you've made it here the last two, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of pills.
Yeah, well, continue to get yourself right. And
I'll be all right. I'm weaning off of them. I'm just fat off of them.
Well, that's going to wrap things up here for George in the Jungle. Again, broadcasting live from the Cincy Light Studios. As always, we appreciate Remington Tavern. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 Bourbon Whiskey Wednesdays, Bottle Cap Bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll be back live next week at 9 o'clock to give you all of your Cincinnati Sports Rewind.